that gets me going. That's that first step. That well begun is the job half done. Hi there, Steve Kaufman. Today, I want to talk about how to find the time to learn languages, or should I say how to make the time to learn languages. Remember, if you enjoy these videos, please subscribe, click on the bell for notifications. If you're listening on Apple Podcast or somewhere else, please leave a review. So, one of the most common excuses I hear from people who profess to want to learn languages is that they simply don't have the time. That's right up there with, you have a talent for like talking to me. You have a talent for languages. I don't. I can't learn languages, which normally refers back to their experience at school where, in fact, they didn't learn, like most kids, at least in Canada. But the other one is, I don't have the time. People say that, I don't have the time. So people seem to have time for lots of activities, perfectly valid, like meeting with their friends and watching TV or going hiking or bicycling or whatever they like to do, but for whatever reason they can't find the time to learn languages. Typically what that means is I have other activities that I prefer to do. I have other activities that are more valuable to me than learning languages, which is fine. Not everybody has to learn languages, but how then, because we have busy lives, our professional or working lives, our other activities, our social activities. So how do you create time, find time, make time for learning languages? To me, the secret for me is listening. Listening is the easiest thing to do. I can listen first thing in the morning, I can listen in the car, I can listen wherever I am. And the listening is the trigger. And in many languages, and I think it goes back to Aristotle, who many languages sort of say, the first step is the most important step. The beginning is the job, well begun is the job half done. Chairman Mao said the 10,000 li march began with one step. The main thing is to get started. And it's so easy to just listen. And then that triggers the rest of it. But you have to know how to do it. So first of all, make sure you equip yourself, okay? So in my case, I listen from a number of devices. I can listen on my iPad. So this is normally where I work, on Link, but I can put it on my stepper. Now, not everyone has a stepper at home, obviously, but I can have this open in the background in the morning when I do my exercises using this program that I'm on, which is on my iPhone. I have my iPad open and I'm listening to my whatever it is, Persian, Arabic, and so forth. So I use my iPad. But at the other end of the spectrum, if I go jogging in the park, I take my iPod. I should have brought this little device I have that attaches to my arm so that I just have my iPod here. It's light. This is why I use it. It's lighter. I could take my phone, which I'm using to record this video, but of course it's much bigger and heavier. So this is ideal for that, okay? And this, I have to load up ahead of time. So I have to make sure I use the Wi-Fi at home to get whatever content I want to listen to onto my iPad. So listening devices. Also, with both the iPod and, on all three of them, I can subscribe to podcasts. I can import audio and put it into my Apple Music, it used to be called iTunes, so that I can accumulate all this stuff to listen to. Now, insofar as listening, of course, I have AirPods, which are in many ways the best because they seem to be better at syncing and connecting to these various devices. However, if let's say I'm out cross-country skiing, I certainly don't want to drop an iPod in the snow. If I go down to the park and I run, and then I might do some, burpees or other things where my head's moving around, I could again drop my iPod. So whenever I'm doing something that's more active, I've also invested into these, I think they're called power bumps or something like that, where here, it's like that little kid with his mittens tied to his sleeves. I'm not going to lose these. So I use these, power beats maybe they're called. And more recently I discovered that there's these guys, because sometimes I get tired of having something stuck in my ear. So these are called open ear. And so I also use these, and it's a relief not to have something stuck in your ear the whole time. So I have invested a little money in these listening devices because I spend so much of my time listening. Listening triggers it. Listening triggers it because I listen and I don't understand, so then I have to go through it, link, okay, and read it. And so that gets me going. That's that first step. That well begun is the job half done. It's so easy for me. I get up in the morning, I just put the audio on and I do my morning exercises, which is also a good thing to get into the habit of doing. And then little parts that I didn't quite understand, I can go back in and look up the words. So the first step is to get used to listening. And if I'm in the car, for example, typically I'll have my iPhone and it'll be coming through the Bluetooth speaker in my car. So I use so between the iPad, I don't take my iPad in the car, and I don't take the iPod in the car, I take my iPhone in the car. So you develop these habits, the ways in which that you can always have your listening handy. Now, the other part of listening is to find things to listen to. And there, I do a lot of listening to the mini stories. I've mentioned them before. There's a lot of repetition. I find that it's good exercise. I can listen to them now for the 30th or 40th time. It doesn't matter. I always notice something. That's kind of my training. That's the equivalent of my exercise in the morning. But I also need to find interesting things. Now, I spend a lot of time looking for content, especially in Arabic and Persian. We are trying in LingQ to make it easier for people to find things of interest at their level. But sometimes you have to ask. I saw a tweet the other day. Someone said, does anyone know of a good intermediate level French podcast? So I immediately replied. I said there's Français Authentique and there's Inner French that immediately come to mind. So I answered. So right away, this person can go there, find these podcasts, which can be imported into LingQ, by the way. But there's a whole community of people who can help each other find content of interest. So, and this the great thing about listening and why listening kind of helps you find the time is it's more difficult to find the time to sit in front of a screen and read or to watch movies or to look words up or to do LingQ. That's dedicated time. That's more difficult to find. But the listening time, you make that, and that triggers the whole range of activities around language learning. And that can be done first thing in the morning, while doing the dishes, while in the car. And I'll find that certain activities lend themselves to certain types of content. If I have to concentrate a little bit on what I'm doing, then I prefer to hear the mini stories. Because even if I don't concentrate the whole time, there's always something that I become aware of that I notice that I hadn't noticed before. On the other hand, if I'm in the car, actually I find it easier to listen to something of interest. So it's a bit like if you're listening to the radio and they're giving you the traffic report or something, you can actually listen to something where there is some significance to what you're listening to and at the same time drive. A little more difficult to do that if I'm, say, working out in the morning, for example, and I'm concentrating on whatever I'm doing, then I prefer to have the mini stories going in the background. So I think everyone needs to develop a program for themselves, but I just wanted to point out that to find the time, to make the time to learn languages, listening is the easiest activity, and you need to build a range of sort of circumstances around what devices you use to play whatever you're listening to, where you find the stuff you're going to listen to, varying the sort of repetitive, simple stuff with more interesting new stuff, different, earphones that you can use for different circumstances. And, put yourself in a situation where you can easily listen anytime you want to or feel the urge, or even if you don't feel the urge, so that you make that first step that eventually will lead you to putting in the time necessary to achieve success in language learning. So with that, I'll leave you with a few videos that kind of relate to this theme. Thank you for listening. Bye for now.